Jeff Van Gundy, who was an assistant under Pat Riley and also coached Anthony as well, joins us now. Jeff, you look at Anthony and there's a certain thought about him. Well, he was just a tough guy. He was like an enforcer in hockey. But this guy had real basketball skills where he could guard a 5 and he could guard a 1. This guy was a pretty good basketball player.
Oh, outstanding basketball player. He was overlooked early in his career and for whatever reason had a hard time getting to the right team at the right time. But when he got to the Knicks, he was not only a very good defender, particularly an individual defender, but he had a tremendous handle. He was a tremendous, tremendous passer. And because of his brute strength and being guarded a lot of times by threes, he faced a lot of double teams in the low post, and he was able to handle the double teams very well. And so you're right. He was a very, very skilled player, and he was an improved shooter. He had an unorthodox shot, but over time he improved as a shooter, improved as a free throw shooter. He was a terrific all-around player.
And it seemed like, from what you hear and what you read over the weekend, that I guess Pat Riley wasn't sold until much later on in his career, right?
No, actually, I'm not sure exactly, Don, what you're referring to, not sold. But listen, Mike, he came in, we had Starks the year before. Coach Riley's came in, and we drafted Greg Anthony, and then we signed Mason. And we went out to Summer League that year. I believe it was in L.A., and it was an absolute wipeout. I mean, those three guys played with such passion and intensity that it really helped jumpstart us as we went into training camp that first year with Coach Riley in Charleston. He had three guys that he knew were going to be in the rotation that had a ferocity of spirit about them, and it made training camp an incredibly physically draining experience for all involved because there was true competition, and it really helped, I think, jumpstart us into becoming that tough-minded, tenacious team that epitomized, Coach Riley's teams there.
I'm wondering if he was tough to coach, because I read stories where, he was very headstrong. Riley suspended him once because he said publicly he should be starting over Charles Smith, and Charles Smith shouldn't be getting his minutes. Was he a tough guy to coach because he spoke his mind and would go right back at an authority figure?
That was interesting. I think it became an annual rite of passage right near the playoffs that Anthony got suspended for something, But the one thing I would say is after those suspensions, Coach Riley didn't hold on to it and Anthony didn't hold on to it. And listen, he was a challenge, but it wasn't, I thought in many ways he was easy to coach because you never had to talk to him about playing with energy or practicing with energy or playing harder in a game. The effort part, the intensity part, the passion part was there every single day he was a Knick. It never changed. The only thing that ever got him, and he passed the ball, and usually you're on guys about playing hard on defense and passing the ball. He did both of those things. Listen, he had a mind of his own. He had a chip on his shoulder, and rightfully so. And sometimes his greatest strength, which was his passion and his belief in himself, crossed over to the other side of the line. And, Coach Riley had to deal with it, but I never thought of it as difficult to coach. I mean, there were challenging moments, but on the overall big picture, it was easy.
It's so interesting to see an athlete be so beloved in this town and for that 94 team to be looked upon as so great and not win the championship. What made that team so special and so remembered 20 years after the fact, even though the championship eluded them?
You're right. We were almost champions. Mm-hmm. And, it's I think, and I saw a picture today or the other day on somebody's Twitter, and it had walking out onto the court at one time. It had Harper, Starks, Mason, Oakley, and Ewing. And they were all together as they were walking on the court. And I saw Patrick this past weekend in Boston, and I said, that was some badass team right there. We were talking about, and we were. And, from the time Coach Riley came in there, we had Xavier McDaniel. And people forget in '94 we had a tough guard who blew out his knee in Doc Rivers, one of the ultimate competitors, who had such a big part in our '93 run where we lost after being up 2-0 to Chicago in the Eastern Conference Finals. And so, I think New York related to that team because they knew they never got shortchanged. We ultimately didn't win it, but we were never outcompeted. And I think our guys and Coach Riley, to this day, rightfully take great pride in that 4-year run.
We're talking with Jeff Van Gundy as we remember Anthony Mason, who passed away this weekend at the age of 48. It's strange that when Don Nelson had that short run as Knick coach, Jeff, before you got the opportunity, one of the things he wanted to institute was Anthony Mason running the offense, essentially. Everything went through him. Did players resent that? Was that something in your mind that Anthony was up for? And should it have been something that Nelson did?
Well, every coach has to coach to what he believes is best for the team, and certainly Anthony got more opportunities. I think I read this weekend that he averaged that year 42 minutes a game.
Wow.
Yeah, and I still remember one game, he had played the first 45, I kid you not, and we were blowing somebody out by plus 20, and he had played great, and he got taken out, and he gave Coach Nelson the stare of death as he came out, like, why are you taking me out? Physically, he could handle whatever minutes, and he always wanted to play more. But he played well. Listen, if you're a point guard and you get the ball taken out of your hands, for somebody else, of course you're not going to like it as much. But, one of the things is I don't think Anthony was overwhelmed by it. Listen, he could handle and he could pass. And oftentimes what he did on rebounds under Coach Nelson was he would bust out, lead the break, and if he didn't have anything, he'd start his back-end game, and a la like Mark Jackson used to, but from a power forward or small forward position, and just back it down and draw a double and ignite the offense from there. So I think Coach Nelson used him well, and I think Anthony responded well to it.